Hey guys, I'm Rob. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I imagine if you clicked on this video, you might also have a shoulder injury and be in the process of weighing up your treatment options. No two injuries or surgical outcomes are the same, so this video can't truly give you the benefit of hindsight, but I hope my perspective today, a month after having surgery, might be helpful as you consider your options. In this video, I'll take you through how I injured myself and give you some background information that was critical to the decision to have surgery. I'll explain why I decided to have surgery even though I was still able to play lots of the sports that I love. And finally, I'll explain how a good friend played a part in the final decision. So, the injury. There's actually two injuries, and both were sustained playing ice hockey. Both times, the injury was diagnosed using manual assessment and MRI imaging as being a torn rotator cuff. The first injury, 3 years ago, I was taken down from behind and my elbow hit the ice. I was immediately in a lot of pain and unable to lift my arm away from my body for several weeks. I was diagnosed with a torn supraspinatus and offered surgery, which I decided not to have. I went down the rehab route instead. It was successful as I feel like I regained the same level of functionality that I had before the injury. Then 4 months ago, I was playing ice hockey again. I was taking a face-off and I felt this pop in my shoulder. The pain was pretty excruciating, and just like last time, I couldn't lift my arm away from my body. It seemed like a similar injury to what I'd done before, but worse. So, straight away, I restarted the rehab process I'd gone through last time. And by chance, one of my personal training clients, Sam, was an orthopedic shoulder surgeon. So when he came in for a workout, he offered to have a look at my shoulder. Based on his assessment, he was pretty confident that I'd torn my supraspinatus and my infraspinatus. Sam is doing these assessments on people all the time and forming an opinion of what tissues he thinks are injured and how badly. And then in the case where a patient opts to have the surgery, he actually gets to go inside the shoulder and see the answer in high resolution. So why is that so important? This means he gets to confirm or refute his own diagnoses. This kind of kind learning environment is really important because it means over many cases and many years, he's able to develop his skill of predicting the location and magnitude of injuries to the shoulder. Given Sam's experience, I really valued his opinion. His diagnosis also made sense. The MRI imaging from 3 years ago had shown a tear in the supraspinatus, and it was possible that I'd made that tear worse in the more recent injury. Straight away, I felt like saying no to surgery 3 years ago had left my shoulder vulnerable and contributed to this second injury. This tended to bias me towards a surgical option this time round. Saying no a second time just seemed like making the same mistake twice. With the original injury, I'd really wanted to avoid surgery at all cost. And even though I regained full functionality and was out of pain, the surgeon had explained to me that without surgical intervention, the actual tear in the tissues wouldn't heal. This would leave the tendon more susceptible to future injury. So I went to see my doctor to tee up the surgical option. An MRI and an ultrasound supported Sam's diagnosis, and I was offered rotator cuff repair surgery for the second time. I pretty quickly decided that this was the right path, and in the next part, I'll tell you why. So before I tell you why I decided to have the surgery, I'm going to give you some of the reasons that I nearly decided not to have it. So first of all, despite having what was described by the surgeon as a massive tear in my rotator cuff, I was still able to play lots of the sports that I love. I was able to play ice hockey pretty much unhindered. There was some weakness in my backhand shot and when poke checking with one hand on the stick, but other than that, I felt good. I also managed to do hard sparring at BJJ, which really surprised me. I could still hold a free handstand for a full minute and do 10 unbroken strict pull-ups. So I've got all this functionality, I can still do a lot of the things I love, so why was I planning to have surgery? Well, there were lots of basic tasks that I could no longer do with my right arm. Things like drinking from a cup, writing on the whiteboard at the gym, any pressing movements were totally off the table, and things like reaching my arm out to shake hands with people, I just couldn't do anymore. What's more, despite diligent rehab, unlike the first time I'd injured my shoulder, I was making no progress in regaining these abilities. I basically decided I didn't want to leave my shoulder vulnerable to further injuries or risk never regaining the functionality I'd lost. This time round, the surgical repair just seemed like the necessary first step. So there are a few final factors that really gave me the confidence to pull the trigger. A good friend, Mike, had had rotator cuff surgery a few years before, and he'd made an amazing recovery. He'd gone back to his sport of Olympic lifting to set all of his lifetime PBs post-surgery. Mike also works in the industry for a company that supplies the anchors and grafts that go into the shoulder surgeries. At one point in time, his role was actually to go into the surgeries and support the surgeons with these tools. His success story and the fact that he was able to recommend a specific surgeon really helped build my confidence in the process. Secondly, my friend Sam explained that there were some other shoulder surgeons in the UK that had a slightly larger toolkit than he did. Basically, if a tear is too large or if the tendon has retracted too far, it's not possible to pull it all the way back and re-anchor it to the original attachment point. In these cases, a graft can be used to bridge the gap. Now, Sam said that in his practice, he didn't have access to this graft. Chris, the surgeon Mike had recommended for me, would be able to use a graft if it was needed. And given that the imaging had shown that mine was a larger tear, I thought this was an important option to have. Finally, when I met my surgeon Chris for the first time, he really seemed to understand how important sports and other physical disciplines were to my life. Letting someone cut you open and sew bits of you back together requires trust. And I felt good about Chris. I really believed he wanted to help me. And I don't think I would have been able to proceed with the surgery without the confidence he gave me. In my next video, I'll tell you how the surgery went. I'll tell you what surprise they found inside my shoulder. And I'll also give you an update on how I'm doing physically and mentally after a month in the sling. Thanks for watching. If you found the video useful, please leave me a comment, or if you've got any ideas for future videos, let me know again in the comment section below.